the game.
Oh, it's
Medic
time.
Let's go. Let's go. Thank you, Shocks, and good afternoon. I'm Aaron Medic Chamberlain, and guess who it is standing right beside me? My brother-in-arms, Andrew Vedieste.
How are you all doing, ladies and gentlemen? We're in for some fun League of Legends today. The Medi combo has returned, and it is for Misfits versus H2k.
And a game that I think a lot of people are saying should be quite one-sided here.
In theory, on paper, yes, you have a 5-0 team versus a 0-5 team. So one would expect that Misfits are going to be the heavy favorites in this matchup.
However, Misfits last split did not have a good track record against teams that were lower than them in the standings.
That's true.
They went 1-1 against H2k. We'll have to see if H2k can pull out a win today and start their split. Well, start the wins in their split. Immediately, Misfits going to get rid of the Vladimir. H2k, I'm so sorry, Vedius. It's the Nocturne mid that's been banned away.
It was probably the Nocturne mid that was taken off the board. You would imagine things like the Irelia, Talia. Swain has been rising in popularity. We saw a lot of it even first picked yesterday because of his flexibility. You can shift in between mid and bot primarily. He can be sent up top, but we usually see tanks up in that side. But it's mainly just the combination of Swain and Pyke, Swain and Alistar that's been so devastating in that 2 versus 2 that Misfits saying, you know what, we want to take it off the board. And maybe they're looking at an early either Mundo or Irelia to start off the draft.
The thing is, for Misfits, H2k have 3 players that have played a different champion in every one of their games. So actually banning them out and target banning them is really difficult. However, they get to win with any of those champions, so I don't think it really matters too much what Misfits ban out in the first rotation. Aatrox taken away, Talia and Braum removed by H2k, and Misfits, after selecting the blue side, have first pick.
Now, Zoe could be a high first priority, but no, it's going to be the Yasuo. You would imagine this is going to go to Senkux in the middle lane. From a lot of the mid laners that I've been talking to, they do consider the Yasuo to be a pretty favorable matchup into Irelia, so they're fine leaving that one open and getting this early priority. It also does pretty well into Zoe and H2k, drafting themselves a pretty strong duo once again. Yet to know whether or not this will be in the mid-jungle funnel composition or whether it will just be a standard bot lane. Yesterday, H2k did go for a standard bot lane, which I quite liked. The problem is they weren't quite proactive enough in enabling this 2 versus 2 and setting up to really snowball.
Yeah, and it didn't really work out too well for them as they fell to Splice, the only other team that came in without a win to week 3. Mundo picked up here for Alphari in the top lane. That is going to be the 4th time he has played that this split. Actually,
relegated to tank duty.
He's only died twice on it though, with 14 kills as well. I still remember him getting that triple kill. So as much as Mundo is a tank, he's still a tank that can do a lot of damage.
I'm sure he's not going to be too upset about that, but for Misfits so far, it feels like very standard. Very much what we've been saying about this team. They are 5-0, not through playing cheese or unique picks. It's just been very, okay, we know what's strong in the current meta. Yasuo, Camille, Mundo, in their respective positions of mid-jungle top, that is just a very common, very strong pick to go for. And you would imagine for Misfits, they're going to draft themselves what will be something like a Lucian paired up with kind of an aggressive support like an Alistar, maybe even a Leona if they want a little bit more engaged.
So H2k have all the flexibility in the first stage of this pick ban. You've got the possibility of a funnel Xayah composition. Darius could go down towards that bottom lane, could be mid, could be top, whereas Misfits have stuck towards this Yasuo mid, Mundo top, and Camille in the jungle. So we're getting to the second stage of bans. You can see H2k maybe trying to give their bot lane a little bit of an easier time by getting rid of Alistar.
You would imagine that Morgana's the next to be banned away from Mickey. We did see his performance early on in the split, and he was landing some pretty clutch bindings. And after yesterday's performance, it's no surprise you'd want to take him off some of those comfort picks. Whereas for Misfits, they want to deny some of these mid lane matchups to give Senkux something a little bit more favorable. So Kayle being taken off the board. I'm curious as to what else maybe they look to take away the Zoe just because of how obnoxious she is as a champion. Lulu could be another one that they might want to take away.
And Zoe is one of Selfie's comfort champions as well. Went 6-3-6 on that the last time he played it. Oh, 6-3-4, sorry. The last time he played it here in the EU LCS. So Misfits instead will go for the Trundle, trying to chomp down on Shook's champion pool. And H2k with the first pick of the second phase are looking towards Fiora.
Interesting. So there are quite a few options here for H2k. Right now, you've always got to be careful of the hovers. You never really know what's going to go where. Looking at this, though, again, the Darius could go both mid, top, and bot. Well, as you rightly said, we don't really know where everything is right now. Expectations are that Darius is being picked into the Mundo in the top lane. You have the Xayah Rakan being put down bot. We've got a Draven Morgana coming out for Misfits. Such a devastating 2 versus 2. You have to wonder how that's going to fare up against the Xayah Rakan, but we know him for a pretty explosive bot lane.
It's such a strong 2v2 bot lane there, because as soon as the Rakan jumps in, you just pop the black shield and you get all of the time you want to wail away upon him. Irelia was the final pick there for H2k, so they get the Lee Sin jungle, Darius top, and Irelia sitting in that mid lane. But once again, we see Misfits go for a more traditional AD carry-centered composition, as H2k are bringing out a few more bruisers.
It looks like H2k, they've gone for a very similar team fight style. You know, this is something that they drafted yesterday, but perhaps a little bit more early game focused. Darius, really strong on one item. Irelia with the Trinity 4 spike. Lee Sin, always known for being a good early game jungler. And Xayah Rakan, known for really hitting a spike, especially with the Storm Razor right now, being one of the core items of Xayah. So I feel like H2k perhaps geared a little bit more towards the early game, something we've wanted to see from them over the last few weeks. Team fighting is still a strength for them, so grouping up and being able to find those fights will be one of the big challenges, because yesterday against Splice, they could not do it. Splice would not fight them, and it was a very slow back and forth. Misfits, however, they've drafted themselves a strong bottom lane. You would imagine that they look to play through the bot side of the map, but knowing Maxlor, his eyes are set on mid. He's going to try and shut Selfie down, and he's going to try and get Senkox ahead on this Yasuo, and then they're going to look to just start crushing the rest of the map.
Maxlor, the one to track for Misfits in the early game. We're looking towards the H2k bottom lane. See if somehow they can get on top of Hansama and Mickey X, probably the best performing bot lane of the EU LCS Summer Split. Misfits on their way to 6-0, and as Judge said on the analyst desk, if H2k is anything more than a speed bump for them, they should be disappointed in this performance. But H2k, I'm sure, will have something else to say. Let's jump onto the Summoner's Rift for the first game of today.
So one thing I do want to quickly note before we get too much into any matchups is the number of teleports that Misfits is running. You'll note that Hansama has a teleport, Alfari has a teleport, and that's pretty standard in the current meta. Many AD carries are running it due to your ability to get back to lane faster. It gives you that tempo advantage that so many pro players like to reference. And there are just many, many advantages to drafting it. But also, Mickey has been running the teleport a lot on a lot of the support positions that he, support champions rather, that he likes to draft. Why? It's because he likes to impact the rest of the map as well. He doesn't like to sit in the bot lane. He's a roamer, he's a playmaker, and having teleport just gives him a couple more options to get involved. He can sit and help Hansama during the laning phase and in situations where he needs him, but he can also just get involved in the fights that much quicker when Maxlor is looking to play around mid lane and perhaps turn what is a 2v2 into a very sudden 3 versus 2 and give Misfits that advantage.
And Mickey's actually run teleport in every single game of the split up until now, and it's so good when you're playing into something like a Xayah Rakan, who can sometimes catch you out, to have the ability to back off and come back into the lane without losing too much of that pressure. Alongside that, as you said, the roam potential is monumental. Maxwell's going to start at his red buff. Shook's going to start at his blue on the Lee Sin, someone who has been serially buffed across the last few patches.
He's had a couple of changes to his energy. He's had a bit of extra damage added as well, and cooldown reduction on his W has made him a little bit more valuable. But the last time Shook drafted the Lee Sin, he died at level 1 due to an invade from G2. It didn't quite get the early start that he wanted. This time, he's actually been able to clear 2 camps without anyone invading him.
Good job, Shook.
So he's definitely off to a better start. But in terms of his jungle pathing, it looks like that he's just doing a full clear towards the bot side. They do actually have a ward in the bot river to spot out what Maxwell might be up to, but his eyes are set on trying to invade onto this red buff, and it looks like right now he's going to go completely uncontested, but they should have spotted this out. You can see the small ward just sitting behind the red buff should have been enough to give H2k the information of where the jungler is.
Shook is on his way up as well. He's going to get spotted by a ward as well. Smitty J can come down and going to try and collapse on towards Maxwell, but he's got the wall jump. Ooh. But it's not quite enough to grab him. Maxwell gets away to safety.
So even with full vision and knowledge that Maxwell was stealing away the red buff, H2k were unsuccessful in being able to steal that one away. So, you know, we talked a lot about Maxlor. He's already off to a pretty proactive early game start. He is still only level 2 to Shook's level 3, but in terms of the gains that have come in favor of Misfits, he's definitely the one ahead. And I just want to use this opportunity to talk a lot about bot lane, because Medic, you are a support. I always love having you on the desk with me when we get to talk about these interesting matchups, because Morg is pretty good into Rakan, from what we know.
Mickey just did...
Oh, he's going to kill him.
Perfect engage there. Sheriff's dead. I mean, you talked about it at the exact perfect time. Sheriff didn't dodge the binding. Mickey lands it, and that's the problem when you're playing into
And now look at top lane.
Maxwell coming in as well, will land the wall jump, the flash in as well. Smitty J low, here comes Shook trying to stop Maxwell and Alfari in their tracks, but Alfari's having none of that. Flash forward, there's one. Shook trying to get the damage down, but it's not enough to take out Amundo. And Misfits 3-0 early on.
Oh, Misfits already off to a dominating early start against H2k. This is not the early game that they wanted. This is not the kind of lead you can afford to give Misfits, because they have now found advantages all across the map. We start with the 2 versus 2 up towards the top side. It is Misfits who react first, and because they're the ones that were able to chunk out Smitty J, they just have a natural health advantage that allows them to get this win. And Alfari getting that level up gives him just enough HP to survive against Shook as well, guaranteeing them that 2 for 0.
So Vedis, you asked me about Rakan into a Draven Morgana matchup. He's pretty boned now, because as soon as you get a Vampiric Scepter on Hans Summer and the Conqueror, as soon as Promiscu steps anywhere near this lane, he's going to get 2 auto attacks to the face and be absolutely destroyed. His main goal now in this lane is to try and get to level 6 and then find an engage on towards Hans Summer where the binding goes on Mickey, the Dark Shield goes on Mickey.
Exactly that, because the thing is, it's quite telegraphed, that knockup from the Rakan, so there's usually a lot of time to get the Black Shield out, and that means that Hans Summer and Mickey can respond accordingly, and they can get a lot of chunk damage back. But when he hits level 6 and that ulti with the taunt, that's a lot harder to react to, so you've got to kind of predict it in advance, and that is when H2k will have an opportunity. But the fact that they died 2 versus 2 in lane gives credit to Hans Summer and Mickey portraying once again their dominance in the European LCS, but also a struggling bot lane from H2k that are yet to find those early leads so far in E.
Just a tiny little micro thing I like from Mickey there as well. He pushes the binding on towards Sheriff instead of towards Promiscu, so if Promiscu jumps to Sheriff to shield him, the binding's going to connect on at least one of them. Mickey X's positioning in this lane is paramount for them, and he's doing a great job up to now.
Mickey has his eyes set on doing a bit of cheeky invading, gets some deep vision down. Misfits are investing heavily once again towards the bot side of the map when it comes to vision. Just have a look at the wards that they have littered throughout the river, along with the Scuttle Crab control that they have. They recognize that they have an advantage bot lane, and they want to keep this going. They don't want to run the risk of their AD carry falling behind or getting ganked at all, and so they're just channeling all of their resources into making sure they have full control over the river, and now they're setting up for a dive.
Teleport coming in as well here from the Mundo. Promiscu and Sheriff not in a good spot. Binding doesn't connect, but they're underneath the tower, and Misfits Goon Squad is on its way. Promiscu flashes away. Sheriff trying to survive as well, but that's one, and Promiscu has nowhere to go. Sankuk's the slow stare into the eyes of the Rakan as he says, well, I might as well dance before my death. Sankuk's gets the kill.
Misfits pick themselves up another 2 kills towards the bot side. We just talked about the vision. They were setting it for the play, and they have their eyes set already on the first tower of the game. Misfits are just so proactive in the early game. And once they get that early lead, they do not stop pushing it. Now, there are a couple of micro misplays here. The fact that Mickey misses his binding, but good tanking of the tower from Mickey. They tank it for as long as possible. Sankux then does get rooted up by the feathers from Sheriff, which nearly costs him his life, but with a good flash, he's able to just get out of range. And Promiscu, he wants to try and execute, but he's not going to be able to escape from Maxtor and Sankux. I thought Sankux used his Ignite to secure that kill, but fortunately he was the one that got the last hit before the turret death, meaning that Misfits found themselves 2 extra kills.
And speaking of Sankux, this is his split at the moment. He's performing incredibly well, high KDA. His kill participation, the amount of time he's involved in his team's kills is up above that 75% mark, and he's doing 574 damage every minute of the game. From a mid laner who is much more utility focused in Spring Split, Sankux is starting to come into his own.
I mean, I felt like Sankux didn't really have an identity last split. He was the source of a lot of criticism, and he was the one that was one of the detriments to the team of Misfits, but the team has found a way to play around him and enable him. He's been stepping up as an individual, and it is resulting in a very powerful Misfits. Now, H2k looking on to go on the offensive.
Apprehend on Mickey, but he flashes away straight away, and Hans Summer's going to turn this one back straight onto the back of Smitty. J, no flash on him. Hans Summer can't quite get the final auto. Gets there. Level up, though. Does he have the mana for the Whirling Death? Not quite available yet.
Teleport is not available for Alfari, so he won't be able to join the fight. He's just going to keep pushing in bot. Smitty J will be able to catch that wave, so he shouldn't lose too much farm, but unfortunate play there for H2k. They wanted to try and shut down this bottom lane, get a bit of gold back in their pockets, and unfortunately, Hans Summer is just too strong. Wasn't even level 6, it was able to turn that 2 versus 2 around. And Misfits, again, kind of just dictating the pace of the game, controlling the map.
HANSAMA so far ahead of Sheriff now with that BF sword and the Vampiric Scepter, and Misfits so far ahead of H2k, about 4,000 gold in the lead, only 8 minutes 30 into the game. We said H2k were the team that wanted to make early plays. Well, it's all Misfits up to now.
It certainly has been. And it's just off the back of this bot lane. Mickey and HANSAMA doing work once again. Yes, you can credit the jungler Maxwell for going top, answering that 2 versus 2 and coming out ahead, but it's just Misfits portraying their dominance once again. You know, we heard the analysts talk about how this should just be a stomp for Misfits. It's kind of what they want against a 0-5 team in the ULCS. Anything less than that would certainly be a disappointment. And for H2k, drafting this kind of slightly more early game focused comp, yes, once you hit that one item, you will be strong. But given the current meta, there are so many champions that are good at that one item. Whoever hits that one item first is going to be stronger. So even though they have a good teamfight composition, given the deficit that they're at, 5,500 gold before even the 10-minute mark, you can't confidently say, I'm sure we can win a team fight.
I don't think you can even optimistically say, I'm sure we're going to win a team fight at this point. Waiting for those first items to come out on towards Misfits, but they're in a very promising position at the moment. Mickey stepping forward with HANSAMA in the top lane, just waiting for that Rift Herald to spawn as well. Something Misfits have been very good at is taking these advantages they're getting in the early game and actually translating them into towers and into dragons and Rift Heralds whenever they can. And that feels like the next step for them here.
Well, Rift Herald will definitely be a nice objective to pick up. They haven't put a lot of priority onto the Cloud Drake. I guess after taking bot tower, they were more focused on getting towards top and trying to take that tier 1 down. They do have double teleport on the bot lane. I think they haven't used it just yet. But with Maxwell hanging towards the top side, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a TP play to try and challenge H2k as they set up a siege on the top side.
This is a little bit dangerous. Mickey's going to be the first to come in. Senko's in the wings as well. Level 9. Maxwell jumps forward, hits onto Shook, puts him in the box and says, that's your place. Shook down first. Senko's now in the midst of 3 members of H2k. Promise Q trying to land the quickness, but the binding doesn't quite connect for Mickey. And Misfits will get the kill and get out.
Teleport did come through from Smitty J. Alfari didn't have his available, so he has walked up towards the top lane. But Misfits are the ones that once again come out on top. Maxwell was able to get in a flanking position. You also had Senkuk sitting in the river. So Misfits were just primed and ready to answer H2k as they tried to siege onto the tier 1 in the top lane. Unfortunately, yet to find themselves another kill. And Misfits, their eyes are probably being set on that perfect game right now. Yesterday, Maxwell, he ended up dying a lot. He was one of the main reasons that Misfits could not find themselves the perfect game. We had a chat with Maxwell before we jumped into game, and he said, you know what? I just want one perfect game this split, and I'll be happy. So, eyes will be on Maxwell. Will he int, or will he stay positive this game?
That's the big question for us. That's all we're going to focus on.
That's the mini-game now for Maxwell.
The Maxwell inting mini-game. You can see here, the teleports that you were talking about for that bottom lane were used. Both HANSAMA and Mickey come in. And H2k think they have a shot to do something.
Yes, they do. But Irelia is sitting in mid lane. You can actually see on the mini-map the question mark pings that I believe were even coming out from H2k that were going down onto Irelia saying, hey, my mid lane is missing. We're not in a position to fight for this. They go for a collapse anyway, and Misfits end up coming out on top. Perhaps a bit of discord within the H2k communication as they currently sit at 6-0. But Shook now, setting his eyes on bot lane. I don't know if he can kill Alfari just yet.
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, that is the only lane where Smitty J actually has a CS advantage over Alfari. It's about 15 CS up, but if you look across the rest of the map, you've got 4 or 5 CS in the mid lane, about 10 to 20 in that bottom lane as well, and 30 farm ahead for Maxwell in the jungle. In a very strong spot. And Misfits are just showing us exactly why they are at the top of the table at the moment, exactly why they're undefeated. This is the sort of performance you expect from Misfits, and perhaps not the performance we saw from them last split.
Certainly agree. Misfits, they seem to be a cohesive, working unit, and they are just playing standard. It's something we talk so much about. Traditional AD carries in the bot lane. We're seeing strong bruises in the mid, but we've got to set our eyes on this jungle right now because H2k, they want to contest the red.
There's the quickness, lands straight on towards Maxwell, and he pops the exit and actually gets himself away.
And Maxwell successfully does not in. He stayed alive. The perfect game potential for Misfits is still alive, even though H2k tried to shut him down.
They got a cloud though. No more perfect game for Misfits. So Maxwell did an int, but his jungle objective control was not strong enough.
And that's going to ruin their stats too, because I
Yep.
believe that right now, Misfits, their Drake control is probably their worst objective stat, even though they sit at first in the league. But now, Misfits, they want a bit of revenge. They have the enemy red buff in their sights, and here they go.
They also have Shook in their sights. It's not your jungle anymore, Shook. That belongs firmly to Misfits. Still have that Rift Herald in the pocket of Maxlaw as well. And you can see that Drake percentage, not their best stat, but still pretty darn good. That's another one. Mickey here pops the Soul Shackles onto Smitty J. Promiscu jumping in, looking for the guillotine, but can't quite connect it. Alfari teleported in behind H2k here. Now their core all ways to Sunday, I guess. I don't even know where I'm going with that, and H2k don't even know where they're going because they have to run back in towards their base to get away from Misfits.
Oh, Smitty J flashed over the wall, tried to get a pick onto Mickey, could not find it due to a clutch black shield, and then he realized, oh no, I've overcommitted. Another objective goes down in favor of Misfits. They have the Rift Herald on the mid lane as well. Misfits, they're looking for more kills.
Selfie trying to land that flawless duet stun, not going to connect. Promiscu waiting in the wings as well. Has the quickness just about to come back off cooldown. Maxwell's going to blast cone, knocks Promiscu back, realizes he's there. The teleport came in as well from H2k. Maxwell realizes he can start up this blue buff. Maybe doesn't want to keep it for too long because Shook is just around the corner.
3-0-3 for Maxwell right now, but involved in a lot of the kills that have happened all across the map. He does not want to ruin that precious KDA. You know what? I think Maxwell, he wants to try and make his way towards player of the game. But it's going to be a challenge, Medic, because I imagine Han Summer will be one of the representatives on this one. And we know how the community often goes in that direction. So this was Misfits. They said, well, you know what? If you're going to invade our red, we're going to invade yours. We have a pushing wave up towards the top lane. We have priority over mid. It's very easy for us to get a numbers advantage. And Shook said, I'm sure I can get this. Oh, actually, Smitty J just straight up missed. Ugh, that's rough. Tries to make a play, isn't able to pull through. And now we see more action. Here we go, H2k still trying to be proactive.
Yeah, but 3 members of Misfits are just waiting for them in that bottom lane. Shook binding connects, he kicks back Senku. Dark Shield wasn't there in time, and then dodges with the safeguard. H2k running back towards their own base. Hexagon made him on Promiscu, pops the quickness. There's the stopwatch from Maxlow on Promiscu. He's just trying to get away from this. The flash, Sheriff gets taken out. The Whirling Death won't connect onto Promiscu as well. Maxlaw can't quite land the final tactical sweep, but Misfits 9-0 up, 9,000 gold ahead at the 16-minute mark.
Promiscu is able to survive, but Misfits find another kill instead. Sheriff ends up going down. 0-3-0 in the bottom lane right now. Misfits extending their kill lead, but it cannot be a perfect game due to the loss of the Cloud.
Oh, Maxlow's a disgrace. He sees jungle proximity's been good, but he wasn't close enough to that Cloud Drake.
No, he was not.
Get it for his team.
That dropped the ball with the objective control. You know, when you speak to him, it's funny because he says he's a bit of a perfectionist. He says there's always something you could do better. And you kind of look at the scoreboard and you're like, 10,000 gold in the lead. He's 3-0-4. Misfits is playing a pretty much flawless game. But then the dragon fell. And he's the jungler. It's his responsibility, Medic, to have control over that objective.
He lost the tower as well in the top lane.
No.
I mean, they're trading 2 towers.
The shot calling is going all over the shop for Misfits. They're falling apart.
Going to be able to get the inhibitor tower and probably the inhibitor up here on the top side. You can see Promiscu trying to see if he can engage, but no flash, no ult from him. Misfits just decide they want the tower for the moment and back off.
So now we get to see, this was H2k trying to say, oh, okay, Senkux is alone on bot lane, maybe we can set up a dive. But then the rest of Misfits show up and they're like, oh, this is awkward. You guys weren't invited to the party yet. They're here to party anyway. And it turns out the Misfits were slightly better dancers. Fortunately, Promiscu then had to walk away in shame as he watched his partner be stolen away from him.
I mean, if you think of that as a mental image, they're both poultry, right? You had a poultry discussion yesterday.
Right, we're not going down that route
Imagine
again.
you have, like, you're a chicken and you have your Mrs. Chicken, right? Your chicken girlfriend. And you see your chicken girlfriend have her soul shackled to the ground and then get killed as you escape. You run clucking off into the distance. And Senkux, he's going to be the first death here as H2k get a kill. I think H2k agreed that that analogy probably wasn't the best and decided to distract us.
I'm not sure where you were going with that one.
I'm just saying it would be disheartening.
Yeah, but I was trying to make like a reference to your dance partner being stolen away. You know, like a better dancer comes along and they're like, hey, do you want to dance? And you're just like, wait, but we were dancing. And then you're just like, oh no. And then you're just like, imagine instead your dance partner gets shackled to the ground and Morgana's like, come here, I will destroy you. And it's
well, I've never had the experience of my dance partner being stolen away.
Wow. I don't know. I'm actually a wonderful dancer. I love to waltz.
We will have to test this at some point later on. Misfits at the moment dancing around the base of H2k. Got that open inhibitor in the bottom lane. And H2k, 3 members up towards that top side of the map. With the Dragon coming up, Misfits do not want to give up another one of those, so they're going to get the Ocean. Has slowed down just a little bit here for Misfits. Not closing this game out yet, but I say that we're only at the 19-minute
they're waiting
mark.
for Baron to spawn, and then once that objective is available, then we should see the game start to speed up a lot more in terms of starting to close in favor of Misfits. In terms of comeback potential for H2k, that Baron will probably be the biggest opportunity, but when the Draven is this far ahead, when the Camille is this strong, and when Yasuo is going for a 2v1.
Max gets shoved. That's just beautiful. Up towards the top side. Mickey X trying to catch up Promise Q as well. He's got no one to dodge to, no dance partner for him. He dances to his grave. Max on a rampage, 4-0-5.
And the Baron spawns in about 35 seconds. H2k falling apart under the pressure of Misfits. They're just so far ahead at this point that there are very few answers for H2k to really come back. On the bright side, Smitty J does have a lot of farm. He has completed the Shrinking Force along with the Aurelia, so those item spikes that we were talking about have come through, but it's just, unfortunately, probably not enough when the Draven has both a Bloodthirster and a Death Star. So here we see Senkux using the Wind Wall to mitigate the damage. You then have the follow-up from Maxlaw as well. I'm sure Senkux was saying to himself, you know what, I can win this 2 versus 1, but Maxlaw says, you know what, I gotta be here just in case things go wrong. And with the extra buddies that they had, they're able to shut down those 2 easy kills. So you would imagine the Baron is on the cards next to Misfits.
Yeah, and at the 20-minute mark, they sit a fair 11,300 gold ahead here, Vedius. On average, they're about 6,700 ahead at the 20-minute mark, so about double their usual average.
So they're going to be padding out their stats pretty significantly right now. This is all building up to the Misfits versus G2 match that's going to be happening in week 4, which is after Rift Rivals. Misfits, unfortunately, will not be making it to Rift Rivals because they were not even able to qualify for playoffs last split. So they've definitely come back this split with a bit of a vengeance. G2, Fnatic, and Splice will all be at that competition, though, going up against Team Liquid, 100 Thieves, and Echo Fox. So we're guaranteed for a couple of interesting matches next week.
As you can see there, H2k usually behind as well. So if you add those up, actually that's about an 11,300 gold lead for Misfits in this game. Interesting you say that Misfits last split didn't make playoffs. And a lot of people ask, and I've asked in interviews with some of the Misfits players, what is it? What's changed for you? And I love Senkux's answer yesterday because he said, it's just hard work. We work hard as a team. We find catches in the jungle. Promise Q dead once again. But there's no magic bullet for a team like this. You just have to develop that synergy, especially the synergy between Maxlaw and Senkux.
And there was a lot of question marks around, should the roster change next split for Misfits, you know? Could they potentially replace the mid laner, find a better one, was something that a lot of the community talked about because people considered him to be a detriment. But coming into this split, I feel like Senkux has been able to show a lot of what he is truly capable of. He is really stabilizing himself as a top mid laner in Europe. And I look forward to seeing what he can continue doing throughout the regular season. So, getting back onto the game, the Baron is now going to be 2-manned by the Misfits squad. 3 members are just hanging around the jungle, trying to zone away the rest of H2k. But this should be a pretty easy secure. And Misfits now on track to getting themselves their 6-0.
22-minute Baron there for them. They can just look to push down that mid lane. That's where the pings are coming out. H2k waiting in the bottom side river here to see if they can catch anyone, but I think Misfits will get those next set of items. Look at Hans Summer, his Bloodthirster, Death's Dance, has the QSS as well. You've got double crit items on towards Senkux. He is basically fully built on this Yasuo now, and any fight H2k try to take, even though they're at that 1 item spike we talked about, is a little bit too much of a deficit.
Well, they're going to try. They were sitting grouped up in a brush in the middle lane. Will they go for the fight itself?
It's so much on Promise Q. Promise Q has to make
Here we
it.
go.
That's exactly what he's going to do. Lands the charm onto Hans Summer, but how far he is, that tanky front line. Smitty J gets shredded on the back. Hans Summer with the kill. Here comes Senkux as well. H2k run for the wins, but Senkux feels the winds of war as he chases in. There's the last breath, and Shook has to flash, but Maxlaw manages to get the kill on the backline. Misfits cleaning house in the H2k base.
H2k tried to go for one last fight. They knew that the game was likely over as Misfits all baroned up, all ready to go, siege through the mid lane, and have the Nexus set to secure themselves another win.
5-0 is shortly to become 6-0, still undefeated Misfits, but yet to play the best team here in Europe. G2 are waiting in a couple of weeks' time, but for now, Misfits go 6-0.
Smiling, happy faces on Max Law. That was a very, very clean game from the Misfits squad. Wasn't quite perfect. Senkux was the one that ended up dying. They lost a tower and a Cloud Drake. So Max Law's going to be saying to himself, yes, there is room for improvement. But still, very, very good performance. Very little to criticize for the side of Misfits. H2k, they tried to be proactive. We saw them grouping up a couple of times. We saw a lot of roams from Promiscu and Shook. But unfortunately, it wasn't quite enough. Misfits read them like a book, was ready to answer at every single turn. And they successfully shut down H2k, who unfortunately now are at 0-6.
However, if you're H2k, you look at some of the plays you were making in the 10 to 20 minute mark there, and you say, if we weren't so far behind, maybe these plays would have paid off.
Sure.
Maybe against a team that isn't Misfits, we could have taken a win.
Maybe, and I hope that they can maintain that positive kind of outlook on the situation, because yes, in this situation, kind of expectations were that Misfits were such heavy favorites that H2k wouldn't really be able to put much of a challenge, and if they would, then it would be a very surprising upset. But for Misfits, they just played very standard. They played very clean. We saw Hansummer and Mickey having a great 2 versus 2. We saw Maxwell impacting the map very effectively. Hopefully Maxwell might be able to get his first play of the game.
Well, I have to see. Let's have a look at some of his plays and some of Misfits' plays in that win. Starting off right at the beginning, this is the quintessential struggle.
This is kind of where it started, yeah. And the thing about the Black Shield as well is they were never going to get rooted either, but just a single binding into that early game damage was just monstrous. And here we just see one of those team fights trying to be forced by Spinny J flashing over the wall. H2k is a team trying to follow up, but they don't have the numbers to force this fight. And here again, this is just a last-ditch effort. If they can kill Hansummer, maybe they stand a chance, but they do not have the damage to kill him. Alphari soaks up 4 members by himself, and then they're able to just get the remaining cleanup. So Misfits, again, looking very good. Very much what you'd expect from our first place team in Europe.
And it's difficult to think about how quick the pace of that game was, but no one even hit level 16. The highest level in the game was level 14 at the end of that game. So we're not getting anywhere near the old school sort of late game periods we used to see. And if you saw a performance that stood out to you, be sure to give us your player of the game at LOL Esports on Twitter. It's Maxlaw, Mickey, and Senkux as your options. So Maxlaw has a chance.
Maxlaw has a chance. He does have an opportunity here.
I think we should say give it to someone else just to mess with
Hansummer.
Tweet at us, at Hansummer. Make sure you vote for him instead. But after the break, we will hear from Hansummer before Misfits coach Moose. No, that was not a sentence. Before Misfits coach Moose joins the analyst desk ahead of Vitality versus Schalke. Don't you go anywhere.
Don't go anywhere. We get to talk about these interesting matchups because Morg is pretty good into Rakan from what we know.
Mickey just did.
Oh, he's going to kill him.
Maxwell and Alphari in their tracks, but Alphari's having none of that. Flash forward, there's one. Shook trying to get the damage down, but it's not enough to take out a Mundo. Promiscu has to make
Here we
it.
go.
That's exactly what he's going to do. Lands the charm onto Hansummer, but Alphari is that tanky frontline. Smitty J gets shredded on the back. 5-0 is shortly to become 6-0, still undefeated Misfits, but yet to play the best team here in Europe. G2 are waiting in a couple of weeks' time, but for now, Misfits go 6-0.